My name is Mark Levitt. I'm a 4 times tech founder in 4 separate companies, and I'm a 4 times national chess champion. I started out at university studying business, and after many years of moving towards becoming an auditor and actually hating auditing, I decided to become a C programmer instead. And when I did that, my life opened up hugely, and I felt incredibly happy. But over the years, being involved in multiple startups, both as a founder and in some cases as an investor, it really stood me in good stead to actually have both contexts of the business side and the technical side. And that allowed me to work between those two groups. And what I realized always was that there was a big communication gap between those two groups. And so my role often was to try and close the gap. But I always wondered if there was a better way to build software. Were there improved ways that we could build software where it would be easier for the different parties to actually work together. And so in some of my companies, I built automation, like more types of automation to actually make it easier to build software. And the less things you have to think about, the less communication you need, the easier it is to build software. But I always had a dream that one would be able to do more automation and potentially in the future even use AI as a way to build software faster, safer, and with less software engineers, which would obviously, it would make it easier to build software at low cost. And so more recently, I became the founder and CEO of a company called Trixta. And Trixta has a platform that uses automation and AI to allow you to build software faster and easier with less engineers. And so that's been a long part of my journey into this area. And so we're actually building systems that make it easier to build software. And in the end, we feel that even the work we've done thus far, that we can actually simplify and speed up many aspects of the software development process. But down the line, our goal is to actually eliminate a lot of the coding and work that software developers have to do. And it sounds like magic. It sounds almost impossible that you could use AI to build software. So I want to just tell you a little bit about a project that's been around for a while. There's a group called OpenAI in California, and their goal is to democratize AI for everyone as a way to ensure that everyone has access to AI, and that there are standards and integrity in how we build AI. So one of the projects that they've launched is called GPT-3. And GPT-3 is it's a natural language processing system. And what it's done is it's actually sampled the entire internet and more to get incredible context on articles, the context of things, words, languages out there. So it's an expert in languages. And what GPT-3 is able to do is to generate content. And one thing that blew my mind actually when I first encountered GPT-3 was some of the poems that GPT-3 wrote. So you can give some basic instructions. You can say something like, write me a poem about the moon, crashing into Earth and changing the way life works, and do it in the style of 18th century romantic poetry. And GPT-3 will then very quickly write you a poem. And when you read some of the poems that GPT-3 has built, it's actually incredible because it just doesn't seem like an AI system could have built that. It feels human-like. But GPT-3 can do far more than just poetry. It can build legal contracts. It can build business documents. And the one thing that really is interesting to me, basically because of my interest in the area of automation and AI and software development, is that GPT-3 can actually write code in different languages. And in fact, it's sampled every language that's on the internet. So it can actually write code in every language that it knows. And all you have to do is give it some basic instructions of what you want it to build. So at Trixta, we actually have experimented with GPT-3, and we've used it to generate different types of code. And so in a way, the future concept of AI taking over software, dev is already starting to happen. And so the question is, should people be scared about their jobs? Should software developers be worried about what's going to happen next? And the answer is not yet, because GPT-3, as clever as it is actually quite dumb in some ways, because it's only able to do very small snippets of code based on very precise instructions from somebody. And that person would probably be a software developer right now, working within the context of their software systems. So I don't think it's inevitable yet that GPT-3 will actually change the world and allow us to build all types of end-to-end software. But I do think we've started, and this is the starting point of something big. So just to put it out there, my personal view is that robots are going to take over the actual job of coding, and whether it's now or whether it's in the future, it's going to happen. So it's just a question of timing. If I ask people in 100 years from now, do you think that humans will still be coding the way they code now, where they actually write text into files and save them? Which is kind of obscure if you think about it, but that's the bread and butter of software dev. Nobody says yes. Everyone assumes that by then that won't be happening anymore. And so the question is what is the timing of this? Is it 100 years from now? Is it 50 years from now? My personal belief is that within 5 to 10 years, we're going to see dramatic change. And every year thereafter, it's going to change exponentially. So within the next 25 years, I do not expect that anybody would be coding. And as harsh as it sounds, I think that's a particular profession over. But that doesn't mean that the people who code today are not the key people who will be working with AI to build software of the future. I think the ability of people to use their innate logic, systems thinking, and the understanding of the business problem, I think is still going to be important for a very long time. There may be a day where the people wanting to build the software are not humans either, but I think that day is further ahead. So I'm launching my channel today. So this is my first live stream on this topic, and it's part of a greater project called Software Endgame. As a chess player, we like to break up the world into three, or break up the board and game into three sections: the opening, the middle game, and the end game. So the opening was maybe in the 1940s and even earlier in some cases. The middle game is kind of where we are now. How will things play out in the future? How will we move from where we are now to the future of software, where we will actually have more automation? It's not obvious how we get there from here. And a large part of what I'll be talking about in the series is actually looking at the ways that we operate right now, maybe going back to first principles of how we operated in the past and where we will go in the future. And so, as you can see, we're doing this live stream on Waitroom. And my goal is just to go out and do this live. So initially I was a bit nervous of doing a live stream because this is harder to do preparation. It's harder to prepare slides. It's harder to think maybe in real time without being able to edit out all the bloopers. But I feel that maybe this is the way that people should be launching channels these days. And Waitroom allows me to do live streams, to record my stream, and also to invite guests and other people to speak to me, to have multiple hosts with me. So I will be doing this live stream at the same time every week for now. And then at a certain point in time when I feel more confident, I'm going to probably move to 2 or 3 days a week and eventually 5 days a week. So I'm just going to see if anybody who's brave enough to ask me a question. I see we have a few viewers here. So I'm going to encourage you to come and chat to me. Come on, don't be shy. Okay, so we have Sean and Barry.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you for doing this. Hi, excuse my ignorance, but I'm currently getting into or starting my sort of journey into coding. I have quite a good knowledge of HTML and CSS and so on, but I'm looking at Python, and I'm just wondering if you can, sort of speak to people in my position where, should we pursue this, knowing that, your timeline of 5 to 10 years, is it worth something still to consider pushing, or pursuing? Or if you could just talk about, where do you see younger people that want to learn to code one day and want to create their own games and apps, if that's something that we should maybe halt, or do we still continue pursuing that? Sorry if that's a tough question.
No, that's fine. So I don't know if you can hear me. I seem to be frozen.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Mm-hmm. You can see me, that's good. Okay, cool. So I do, even though I do believe that one day we will not be coding per se, I actually do think that it's important to get a deeper understanding of technology. And I think coding today gives you the deeper insights into what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Python's a great starting language in a way because it's easy to learn in most other languages.
Yeah.
It's the most popular language to learn right now. Learning Python may not give you job opportunities as much as maybe some other languages immediately, but if you get good at Python, then there would be job opportunities around that. But at the very least, I think it gives you like a great introduction to coding.
Okay, cool. And then just if you could talk on, the sort of younger generation that does want to get into coding, is that something they should still pursue, or do you think it's maybe?
Well, in a way, it's a similar answer.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it makes sense to learn coding. And I think for younger people, Python probably is a good starting language too.
Okay, all right.
But I do think that, I doubt, by the time they grow up and get older, so if they're 10 or 12 now, I think by the time they're 20, 22, 25,
yeah,
it won't be the Python, it won't be the language, but I think it's the understanding and just learning and, like even learning HTML and CSS and JavaScript and getting the basics of the web, I think is very useful.
Okay.
If you are coding, you're confronted by major problems and challenges every day, and that grows your knowledge and understanding of what you need to do. It also, if you do the chance to work with the customer and to understand the needs of others and how to implement that.
Right.
So I do think it's strong.
Okay.
I just think that one day the coding part is not going to be the part that makes them differentiate itself.
I understand.
It's more the overall experience.
Right. Cool. I thank you for that, Mark. That's very insightful. And again, good luck with the show, and thank you for doing this. I'll skip to Barry.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mark. This is super cool.
Hey there, Barry.
I'm excited.
Cool.
I have a few comments I could that I thought of when Sean was talking around whether someone should be learning to program or not, and I think that there was a comment made in my career at some stage where we were talking about the phrase coding itself. Now, that word, it suggests that you are doing something cryptic, which is kind of how the rest of the world sees it. But in other places in the world, the word scripting is quite sort of common, and that's also the same sort of thing. But scripting, at least, that word is closely aligned with, well, in my mind, with like a play or something where you would, orchestrate people on a stage or something like that. So it's a script of what to do. It's an instruction really for the computer or a group of people or systems to do something. And I think that learning any language helps you develop that part of your brain where you learn to sort of think about processes and how things might work over time before they happen. So it's very much about forecasting and then scripting, like what to do. And that I think will still need to be around even if AI is sort of doing the heavy lifting of, taking those instructions of what it is that you want in the real world and sort of programming that. Very much, I prefer that word versus coding, but obviously we all use the word coding. But the whole idea is that it shouldn't be cryptic. It shouldn't be difficult to understand, nor should it be not understood by anyone. Scripting and programming is very much about being non-ambiguous as well. So you'll find that as soon as there's any ambiguity in like requirements or in your understanding or anything, then it's sort of, then you're not going to get out what you want. And that's, I think, still going to be a challenge with computers. They're going to have to sort of figure out when we are being ambiguous. I think that'll probably be their best use, is just figuring out when we are unclear about what it is that we want.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a great point. And, if you look at the types of people that are involved in the software process, you have the people that come up with the scope of what you want to build, so the business people. Then you have the builders, and there could be different types of builders. coders, developers, scripters, UX, UI. There's a lot of builders. And then you have the end user of the products. And they seem very separate. But I think as we go down the path, if we can find ways to close the gap between the business people and the builders, so that's it's actually very clear. I mean, they could even become one person, or they could have AI assistants and ways to kind of to figure out how to actually operate together. I think that actually makes it a lot easier to operate. And I think even the user, I mean, the users themselves in a way could become co-creators of the software too. You know, I think that there's more and more systems where the users do things and add data or change things where the whole system could actually change. So I think those three very separate roles can actually start changing and moving into one.
Yeah. Yeah, and just I would like to see, having more real-time feedback. So when you make a change or anyone does something, they can immediately see what the outcome of that change is, or what it means. And I think software currently we have a very long turnaround time between someone asking for something, making a change, and then seeing the results. And between that time, a lot of things change, or information is lost around what it is that is trying to be done. Whereas if you look at a video game or someone learning to play an instrument or something, there's that feedback is immediate, it's instant, and that allows people to learn rapidly and sort of get what they want out of what they're trying to do. I think there's a lot that the software sort of world could learn from those kinds of those worlds.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in many ways, I think the future of software, and I'm going to cover this in future episodes, but I think the future of software is around treating software, and I think software in the future will be very much distributed software, but it's treating it as a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. And if you think about it that way, there are maybe new ways of building software. And so I think that the game elements are actually quite strong. And in fact, the Trixta system was conceptualized from a game platform that I built for the previous team called Chesscube. And so I think some of the patterns were already set there, where you have different roles, you have different realms or domains where people operate in. You have rights, you have different roles. So those are the types of topics I want to cover in the future. So I'm just going to check if there are anybody else that wants to come in. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap up. So I'll start wrapping up some aspects of this. So my goal is to turn this into a more formal channel. I didn't really push the number of people. My goal was to do this very simply and quietly, and then just learn how this works. I can see I need a more powerful processor to handle some of the software that I'm using today. But my goal is to grow this as a concept and to invite far more people. But I will be putting these videos out on YouTube as well. Great. So thanks everyone. I will see you same time next week.